Hello again. For my research, I've been looking at the role of women in Puritan New England, specifically how they were able to have spiritual influence in a society that didn't really give them formal authority. What really stood out to me as I worked through the project is that Puritan theology seems to do two different things at once. It limits women by placing authority in the hands of men, in the home and in the church, but at the same time it focuses on personal devotion and individual faith, so this gives women a way to take an active role in religious life. And this was especially true through practices like prayer or spiritual writing. My main argument is that even though Puritan society was deeply patriarchal, women still shaped the spiritual life of their communities through personal devotion, testimony, and religious writing, and along with the influence they already had within their homes. One of the clearest ways women expressed spiritual influence was through writing, and authors like Anne Bradstreet and Mary Rowlandson are really strong examples of this. Bradstreet's poetry shows a deep engagement with faith while still maintaining the humility expected of women at the time. And Rowlandson's captivity, in her narrative about her captivity, is especially powerful because she interprets her suffering through scripture. In doing that, she shows a kind of spiritual authority that comes from her own personal faith. Even though these women weren't in formal leadership roles, their words still shaped how others understood Christianity and their religious experience. Another important part of my project is the role of the home. Historians like Laurel Thatcher Ulrich and Edmund Morgan point out that the home was actually central to Puritan religious life. And women played a major role there by teaching their children and guiding daily devotion with them, while also helping maintain spiritual discipline within the household. So, while their influence wasn't public in the same way as men, ministers and things like that, it was still essential to the stability and continuity of the community's faith. There's also an important tension between Puritan leaders, what they said women should be, and how women actually lived. When you look at writings by ministers like Cotton Mather, you see clear expectations for women to be obedient and humble. But when you compare those expectations to women's writings and lived experiences, you start to see that it's a little more complex. Women weren't just passive participants. They were actively shaping religious culture, even while staying within accepted boundaries at the time. One challenge I ran into during my research is that many of the sources we have were written by men, which can present an idealized version of women's roles. Even some of the women's writings were often shaped by those same expectations, and because of that, I had to be really careful not to overgeneralize and to pay close attention to context and perspective. Overall, this project shows that women's spiritual influence in Puritan New England was real and it was meaningful, even if it wasn't officially recognized. Their contributions helped shape early American Christianity in ways that are subtle but really important to understand. Thank you.